Hello there, folks. Back again for another video. In this one, it's another kind of a little bit of a hobby chat, as it were, rather than focusing on something with the old computer. And this is kind of just following what I've been working on at the moment over the last little while. As you can see, I've been doing something a little bit yellow. So these miniatures were something that I've been tempted to dive into for a while, actually. So I've always liked the idea of running a demon army in Warhammer 40K, and of course, by extension, Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and everything else in between, of course. And I've always really liked the Khorne Daemons. I've always thought they were an amazing range, especially over the last little while, with all their different creatures and stuff. And they're also just fun to paint as well, really. And so what I thought would be cool is to build up a little army that would match the new edition of 40k, which is 40k 10th, and essentially dive in and get that painted up so I can start to play some combat patrol games against my friends and things, and then see where it goes from there. So I wanted to dive in and paint up the combat patrol, but I didn't want to do it in red, which is the typical color scheme that you'll always see for Khorne armies. And then it came to me that there was a really fun idea that I could run with. So Skulltaker, who is the named Bloodletter hero, carries the Slayer Sword, obviously, which is his weapon of choice. The Slayer Sword also happens to be the prize that is given out to the winner of Golden Daemon. And so I thought, wouldn't it be cool to use some of the old artwork and the old reference images of the Golden Daemon from past versions of 140,000, and of course the new sort of promotional material for the painting competition, and paint up an army of bloodletters for Khorne that were based on that scheme. And I've always liked working with yellow when it comes to Iandan and stuff like that in the past, when I've done different videos for bringing them to life. And so I thought I'd take the contrast Iandan paint and run with that and use that as the basis for my army. So yeah, here's the little bit of work that I've been working on at the moment. So that's the yellow that I've been using for this. I just sort of splash it over all the miniatures, essentially. And it works really well over the organics, I think. You can see how it looks here on the miniature. It's sort of worked really nicely, I reckon, across that. Beyond that, then, the scheme uses a few different colours. So a lot of the metallics done with one of my favourites, which is Balthazar Gold. We've also got the Rakarth Flesh, which is used for the off-white of the bone. Tongues and stuff done in Pink Horror. There's a liberal amount of Blood for the Blood God used, of course. I use Lothern Blue to do the eyes, because I think that works quite nicely. And when it comes to the colour wheel, these kind of work really nicely to kind of be the opposite of that, especially that, of course. What else have we got? So we also use that lead belcher for some of the other metallic elements of the miniatures, as you can see here with this Bloodkeeper. I can't remember what they're called now. I think it's Bloodkeeper, possibly. Anyway, I'll remember it in the future. But yeah, so you can see I used it for the swords there, and for the horns and things as well on the miniatures. There is also a couple of washes involved with this one as well. So I use Earthshade on the horns to then highlight them back up again. I use Flesh Shade on all of the Balthazar Gold bits to bring that out and give it a kind of worn and ancient look, kind of tight into that idea of brass. And then what else do we have? We also have a little bit of Fugan Orange used on some of the miniatures. So Fugan Orange is used when we have miniatures like the Khorne hounds here. So I use that on the top just to give them a little bit of a difference in terms of the look of the miniatures. Just make them pop a little bit more with the fur and kind of separate it out a little bit more from the rest of them. So as you can see, like that's one of the spiny ones as a work in progress miniature for the flesh hounds. And then you've got those there with the fur on the backs, and then using that I think really works to kind of just take it up a level and add a little bit more difference and draw to the miniature, which is quite cool. So yeah, so those are all the different colours that I've used for that, really. I do use a little bit of Blood for the Blood God as well on one of the pieces, which I'll show you in a second. So it's not necessarily a massively complicated paint scheme, really, and I think it comes together to quite an effective looking army that kind of is designed to tell a story whilst also being linked to something fun that people go, oh, I get why you've done that idea. And also it steps away from the traditional red demons that we normally see in armies. I will say with this army, I am going to do all Khorne. There's not going to be any Nurgle or Slanesh or Zench in there, or Zeech, however you want to say it. It's all going to be Khorne. So it's all lots of very heavily focused melee combatants, and then there's going to be a couple of skull cannons in there as well, because I think they look kind of derpy, but I will probably be picking them up because they are very metal, and it would be very nice on the front cover of a metal album, I reckon. So anyway, so yes, that's the one of the leaders. I think they're called Bloodmasters. Bloodmasters? I think that's correct. So that's one of the leaders that you get in the combat patrol. So he's going to be leading the way. And obviously they work very nicely when put into units. Then we've got the traditional Bloodletters. So I've got a couple of the ones that I finished here that I thought would be worth showing you. So here's one of the finished Bloodletters, the basic ones. Very simple and easy to paint because you just use the contrast over the top. The thing that you've got to remember with contrast, especially when it comes to miniatures like this, is that you can't let it pull too badly. I mean, you can see a few times where it's worked in ways that I wasn't entirely intending, especially on things that were a little bit flatter in terms of, so things like the head, the horns there. But otherwise, I think it actually works really nicely. You just got to remember that with it, you might want to sort of water it down as well, potentially, just to make it, not water it down, but use like a medium or something just to help it flow a little bit better. But as you can see, nice and quick and easy to build these and get them together, get them all painted up. Can't really see the blue eyes in his face there. But yeah, the unit of Bloodletters took about 3 hours to paint from start to finish. Because they'd all been assembled, and it was literally just a case of slapping the paint on and getting through it all, really. The basing takes a little bit longer because you've got to wait for the astrogranite to dry so that you can then dry brush it and do the final bit of it. But I think they turned out really nicely as a nice little collection of battle line infantry. So there's the Bloodletter musician. Here we've got the standard bearer, or the icon bearer. So that icon was done by painting contrast on it first, and then to get the glistening look, I just put on Blood for the Blood God over the top, and I think it works really nicely. And nails that look. Again, I really like their faces and the way that they've come out, especially with the pink tongues. I think that's really cool. I was tempted to do the swords in 2 colours like the leaders, but I quite like the idea of just leaving them like that, so it's nice and quick and easy to get them painted, to be honest. Especially as they're kind of rank and file troops. I might come back and rejig that a little bit in the future, just because it'll, quite a bit of difference, but otherwise I think it's not too bad. There's the champion for the unit as well. Again, a little bit more detail on him. So doing the blending onto the horns there with between the yellow and the white, just to get across the fact that he's a little bit more important than the others. Maybe I'll do his sword in two different metallics, just to kind of get that across, I suppose. But yeah, all finished and done with those. And then I tried to kind of like make things a little bit easier on myself, because I didn't want to just go back through and paint in another bunch of Bloodletters, because that would kind of drive me insane. And so I thought I'd crack on with some of the Khorne hounds. So there was 10 of them to do. You've seen some of the work in progress ones here. And so these are them without a lot of the washes done to them. I've done the orange on their back, but I still need to go in and do their eyes, and I need to do the washes on the rest of the miniature, and then do some highlighting back up again. Some big thick highlighting, and of course the bases. But they didn't really take too long to do either, to be honest. So that's a unit that is kind of work in progress, but the finished ones are the ones you see here. I might go back in and paint that icon of Khorne in the Balthazar Gold, just to kind of mark him out as different, but that's a finished leader of the Flesh Hounds there, and I think that looks, again, really nice and evocative and stands out on the tabletop, running with the Golden Daemon vibe in essence, if not in technique. And there is one of the Flesh Hounds with the spiny bony back, and again, I think it looks really nice. for the unit. And yeah, I think I probably will paint those brands in Balthasar Gold and just give it a wash of Reichland Flesh Shade just to make them pop a little bit more. So I do need to come back to them in the future and get them finished off. The other thing that I really want to do is I want to go back and do a little bit more to the bases. So it's not so bad with this guy because you've got a skull and some rocks on the base anyway. So it works fairly well. So it kind of fills that. But for some of the characters, obviously, just doing the astrogranite on or the debris on the bases is okay, but it looks fairly plain. So what I'm going to do is I've got the skulls set. So I'm going to throw skulls onto all the different bases, I think. Just put a few on, get them painted up, and maybe put a little bit of blood on them as well, just to kind of go with the whole Khorne blood vibe. The next project, so these are finished. This unit will be the next one to be finished, which is the second unit of flesh hounds. The next one that I need to do is the blood crushers. So I assembled the unit with the leader figure, as you can see there, which is kind of cool, big chunky boys. There's the icon bearer, the standard bearer for the unit, and there is the musician for the unit as well. Looking pretty good. Now, the only thing that I've done wrong with these is that essentially these two miniatures shouldn't have been glued together. So I shouldn't have put the bloodletter on top of the Juggernaut of Khorne. What I should have done is kept the bloodletters separate, not glued them on, although I didn't realize this until further down the line when I'd forgotten. But I should have kept them separate, and then I should have sprayed the Juggernaut black and the bloodletter in Wraithbone, so I could have contrasted the bloodletter and painted it up to match the rest of the models that you see here. But what's going to be because then the real pain is that I wanted to dry brush this, and it's going to be, I'm trying to work out the best way to do this now that isn't going to, take an immense amount of time. My one thought was spray the whole thing in Wraithbone, and then Abaddon black or Chaos black or whatever, essentially paint the Juggernaut black, and then do the dry brushing on that first, and then come back and tidy this guy up. The second option I have is to just spray the entire thing black, and then paint the bloodletter in a base coat of yellow. So paint the bloodletter in Avaland, and then put a coat of Iandan over the top as a wash, because it won't look quite the same as that, because that's obviously straight over Wraithbone. What'll look fairly similar. Obviously, I'm going to have to paint yellow over black, which is a pain in the arse, but it's probably the best way for me to do that. But if anyone's got any suggestions on how I should approach that, that would be very welcome, because at the moment I'm just annoyed with myself that I glued these onto the back. I could get them off with a knife, but I don't really want to mangle the miniature. But in the future, and this is going to expand to a unit of 5 blood crushers in the 1,000-point army. In the future, with the other blood crushers, I will not be sticking the bloodletters onto the back of those. But once that pain has been sorted and I've done them, the next move will be to go on to finish the other 10 bloodletters. They'll all be done, and then I'll have my combat patrol ready so I can start playing some games against some other combat patrols. And from there it'll just be a couple of additional characters. Obviously going to pick up the plastic miniature for Skulltaker. There's going to be another Bloodmaster in there, and then there'll be Karanak, who will lead one of the units of Flesh Hounds, which I think is a 10-man unit of Flesh Hounds will eventually be for that one. And then I think there's a couple more options to get it up to 1,000, but it's mostly just a bunch of I think it's just the Blood Crushers, some more Flesh Hounds, Karanak, Skulltaker, and the Bloodmaster. Takes it all up to 1,000, which is pretty good. From there, I have got thoughts of what else I'd want to throw into the mix as well. I would really like to do a Demon Prince of Khorne using the new Demon Prince box. I think that would be nice to throw into the mix and be really fun to use as the leader for the army. Although I still quite like the idea of Skulltaker being the leader, to be honest, as the general, because it makes sense with the theme of what I'm doing. But a Demon Prince would be nice, and also playing around with those skull cannons, of course, to get up to the sort of 2,000 mark. Maybe throw some more Bloodletters in, so I've got 3 units of 10. And yeah, there you go. But yeah, I've always wanted to do a demon army, and this seemed like a fun way for me to not go down the same route as everybody else and do things in red. There's nothing wrong with red Bloodletters and sticking with that traditional Chaos theme, of course, but I just thought that going down this route would be quite fun and also funny as well, because I'll be like, oh, I see painted Bloodletters yellow. Yeah, this is my Golden Demon army. It doesn't look Golden Demon quality, no, but it's based on the lore of the characters, which I thought would be a really fun way to sort of get people interested in the army on the tabletop. And they also just look really striking. Like, with all these assembled, I love the idea of seeing these rushing across the tabletop and attacking things and getting stuck in and stuff. So, it's not going to be the most optimal, but it's fun, and that's the main thing, really. But yeah, been working on this army over the last week or so, sort of taking my eye away from Middle Earth and things a little bit, but otherwise been quite fun to dive into and have a bit of a play with. As I say, Khorne is my flavour of the month at the moment, and I'll be finishing these off fairly soon. Probably only going to take the rest of next week, I think, to get these finished off. But I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below about the look of the army, what you think of it. If you've got any solutions for what to do with these to make it a little easier on myself, please let me know. I could also just do black and paint this guy Wraithbone with the base paint, and then at least that would give me a good option for getting them done, I suppose. Because I don't need to paint the weapons. I just need to paint his skin yellow. So maybe that's a good way to get around that. Also, gluing them on the top means that dry brushing into all those little cracks is just going to be a pain in the arse, isn't it, really? But there we go. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. The other thing I wanted to ask is combat patrols, Warhammer 40,000 10th. Have you been tempted to dive into Warhammer 40,000 10th with one of the combat patrols? If so, which one? And have you been enjoying painting them up? Have you played some games? Let me know in the comments what you think of it all. So yeah, just a little look at what's on the painting table at the moment, this Golden Demon army of Khorne. As I say, make sure you drop your comments down below. Tell me what you think. I'm going to be moving on to get another video sorted and ready for next week. But yeah, let me know what you're working on at the moment, and we'll have a nice chat in the comments. You can, it'd be great if you would like, comment, share, and subscribe, and do all that good stuff, because I love interacting with you folks in the comments down below. There's also a Ko-fi link if you want to donate to help me out with hobby supplies and cups of tea and everything else in between, because that's always greatly appreciated. But beyond that, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. I just love chatting to you folks in the comments, so please just get involved and chat away. I'm going to be moving on. Hopefully this has given you some ideas to do something fun with a combat patrol in the future and play around with some ideas that maybe you've not thought of before. And yeah, I'll speak to you soon. So yeah, Golden Demons, ho! Bye for now.